After she moved in, she began to really harass Brad. At first, it was just inappropriate hugs at odd times. Like he would be standing in the kitchen, and she would run up behind him and hug him and squeeze his chest with her hands. Or she would sit next to him at dinner time, and she would squeeze his thigh under the table. Hi there, my name is Mason, and boy, do I have a story to tell you. To start off with, my younger brother Brad and I grew up with our parents in a gorgeous home in an affluent neighborhood. Our parents both had very good paying jobs and were the kind of married couple that everyone else looked at with envy. They truly did love one another, and we were a very happy family. Sadly, that all changed though when my mother was driving to work early one morning and there was terrible fog. No one knows how the accident actually happened, but there was a 12-car pile-up on the freeway, and unfortunately, our mother was at the center of it. While on her way to the hospital, she passed away. The funeral was just terrible. Both my brother and I were teenagers, but it still hit us very hard and took months before we could even think about her without crying. Our father took it the hardest and tried his best to comfort us while he was in a living hell, having lost the true love of his life. It was hard watching him mope around the house. He almost looked like a zombie in search of brains that he could never find. To make matters worse, he always wore the same jogging pants and t-shirt for weeks on end. Thankfully, he was still bathing, but his clothes were beginning to smell a bit ripe. Eventually, Brad and I had had enough, and we approached him. "Dad, listen. We miss Mom just as much as you do, and we can understand that you're hurting right now. But you can't just give up on life and mope around the house. We know it's hard, but what if you were to start dating again?"
I don't know, boys. I don't know if that's a good idea. Mason is right, Dad. If you don't want to date, that's okay with us, but you have to snap out of this. Mom wouldn't want you wasting your life away sitting on chair and doing nothing. She would want you to be happy.
She would especially want you to start wearing more than one set of clothes. Seriously, Dad, that shirt and those pants need to burn at this point. There isn't a washing machine strong enough to clean them. We all had a good laugh at that, and the next day, Brad and I were happily surprised to see our father wearing different clothes. His whole mood seemed to have shifted overnight, and for the first time in months, we were happy. However, that didn't last very long. Shortly after that, our father created a dating profile online and was starting to go on dates. We didn't think any of them were very serious until he brought home a woman. She was around the same age as he was, but she didn't have any children. Her name was Monica, and she struck me as very fake and not someone I would ever picture my father with. But he did seem happy. As the weeks passed by, Monica began to spend more and more time at our home. Neither Brad or I were very happy about this, and were doubly so when she officially moved in. The only real difference, though, was that she made a point to try to win Brad over. If I hadn't known better, I would have said that she would even flirt with him every now and then. She would wear low-cut tops and would always lean over and pick things up in front of him. Part of me just wondered if I was being too suspicious, but then I went and privately asked Brad about what he thought of things. "Hey, maybe I'm overthinking things, but what's your take on Monica?"
Honestly, I'm not a fan. She seems to make Dad happy, but she keeps saying and doing weird things around me. It kind of makes me feel uncomfortable.
What kinds of weird things?
Well, like purposefully walking around after taking a shower wearing nothing but a towel.
Yeah, that is odd, but some people do that. Maybe she was in a rush to get ready for something.
No. This usually happens when I'm home alone with her, and she's even accidentally dropped the towel a couple of times too. The last time, I ran out of the house and went for a bike ride because after she stood there naked in front of me, she winked at me suggestively.
I knew then that I hadn't been wrong about her, but I also didn't know how to approach my dad and talk to him about all these things. Which in hindsight was a massive mistake, as he and Monica came home one day and announced that they had gone down to City Hall and had gotten married in a spur-of-the-moment decision. I tried my best to act happy for them, but after what Brad had said to me, I couldn't help but worry that my father had made a terrible mistake. After that, Monica officially moved in. It didn't take her long to start making herself at home, and she even began redecorating the house the way that she liked without so much as checking in with the rest of us. After she moved in, she began to really harass Brad. At first, it was just inappropriate hugs at odd times. like he would be standing in the kitchen and she would run up behind him and hug him and squeeze his chest with her hands. Or she would sit next to him at dinner time and she would squeeze his thigh under the table. Brad kept coming to tell me about these incidents, but neither of us could figure out a way to approach our dad with this information. After all, it would be her word against ours, and so I came up with a plan to catch her in the act. Brad and I went online and ordered some cameras that we could hide around the house, and once we caught her in the act, we could then show our father so that we could open his eyes to who Monica really was. A couple days after the cameras were installed, though, our father became ill. Brad and I were terrified as we were forced to call him an ambulance as he had a stroke. It made no sense that he would have one, as he was young and ate right and worked out fairly often. Once he was in the hospital, though, things took a turn for the worse as he suffered an even worse stroke and died. We were all very confused. Our father had gone from very healthy and happy to being so sick that he died within the matter of hours. In the days that followed, we held a funeral service for him, followed by the reading of his will. Both Brad and I were in a daze and were barely functioning. We were only in our late teens and had already lost both of our parents, and now we were being forced to live with this woman that neither of us liked or trusted. The only comfort came when the will was read, and shockingly, all of our father's belongings, money, and properties were given to the two of us. He hadn't had enough time to update his will and include Monica, it would seem, which was just as fitting. I was given ownership of the lake house, while Brad was given the deed to the house we all lived in. The lawyer did let us know that he had been in the process of updating our father's will to include Monica, but that he had hit several snags and had been unable to make it official before he had passed away. I was actually surprised when I looked over at Monica and saw that she wasn't upset by not getting anything. For the first time, I wondered if maybe she actually did love my father and that she was okay not inheriting anything from him. However, a few days later, she began to harass Brad more than she had ever done before. Now that our father was no longer alive, she began to drop being very subtle about things and openly made advances on him.
"Oh, Brad, you are such a handsome young man. Surely you've thought about me once or twice. I've seen the way that you look at my body when I'm wearing nothing but a towel."
Monica, you're my stepmom. This is incredibly wrong.
"Oh, don't be so shy. Just know that I never lock the door when I shower or sleep, just in case you want to pay me a visit. I'll always welcome the company."
We now had video evidence, but without our father to show it to, neither Brad or I knew what to do with it. Confused and not knowing even what our next step should be, we turned to an online forum and posted under an alias about everything that had happened and asked the people online what our options could be. Within a week, someone responded and began asking questions that felt very odd. They knew exactly what Monica looked like, although they referred to her as Angela, and oddly enough, they even knew about the tattoo that Monica had on her thigh that we only knew about because of her towel incidents. They described the tattoo in great detail. Neither Brad or I knew what to do with this information, but we asked the person that posted if they would be willing to meet up and talk about this. The next day, we met a woman who was around our age named Hillary. She claimed that Monica had married her father, and that once she had been included in his will, that he had had a stroke and died as a result. Hillary couldn't prove that Monica had been responsible, but after she had been given her portion of the inheritance, she had left Hillary to fend for herself, but only after selling the family home, leaving Hillary without any alternative other than to live with her aunt and uncle. When she had read our post, she knew that Monica was the same woman that had married her father and was hoping that somehow she could get revenge on her. Okay, so if it is the same person, then how do we prove it?
Well, I looked it up, and there are poisons that can cause a stroke, and they are mostly untraceable. My theory is that Monica poisoned both of our fathers in order to get their inheritance money, and I doubt that we are the only families that she has done this to.
Okay, so how do we prove it if the poison is untraceable?
The poison might be untraceable, but I know of a way that we can prove that she gave it to our father.
Brad then pulled out his laptop. He had programmed the cameras around the house to upload the footage that they had recorded to his laptop at the end of every day so that they videos could be saved. And sure enough, when we went through them, we saw Monica put some powder into our father's food, and hours later, he had his stroke. We even saw where Monica hid the rest of the powder, and with this information, we ran straight to the police and handed over the evidence we had gathered. It took them less than 5 minutes to see what we had, and then send out a squad car to arrest Monica and to collect the remaining powder from its hiding spot. Over the next couple of months, the police were able to investigate Monica and her past very thoroughly and found that she had changed her name and had used many aliases over the years, and that she had been married over a dozen times. All of her husbands dying from strokes and leaving her with large amounts of money, and when the money ran out, she would change her name and get remarried. They were able to pin the murders of all the men that she had been married to on her. And when she went to court, she was sentenced to stay in prison for the rest of her life. Having her finally out of our lives has been a huge relief, and we are grateful that we were able to bring justice not only for our father, but for the other men that she had murdered. Both Brad and I agreed that he was no doubt going to be her next target. After not getting anything from the death of our father, she had then set sights on Brad to get what he had inherited. We do visit her every now and then in prison, just to rub her nose in the fact that we are free and enjoying our lives. Maybe it's mean for us to do, but the sadness and anger that we see on her face every time that we visit is priceless. She took our father from us, and we will make sure that she feels no amount of joy whatsoever for the rest of her life. As for us, well, both Brad and I will be attending college in the fall. Our inheritance from our father has ensured that we have a bright future set up for us. Having school completely paid for and owning our own homes will definitely give us an advantage in our lives. And as luck would have it, I have even begun dating someone, and things are really getting serious too. After Monica was arrested, I kept in touch with Hillary, and it turned out that we have a lot in common and began to date soon after that. We were later told that the guards found Monica beaten to death because the inmates kept harassing and beating her every day, but the prison guards just ignored her. Monica is now in eternal purgatory, where she can't escape from the beatings from all the people she had killed. Hopefully, that will be the last bit of heartache that any of us will have to endure.